Good evening, I'm Don Hammond. Thanks for joining us tonight on this special edition of 13 News at 11.
I'm April Kaull. We have new details, information, and reaction after today's massive gas pipeline explosion near Sissonville in Kanawha County. Just some of the amazing images and video back from the scene today. Here is what we know right now. That explosion happened just before 1 o'clock this afternoon. No deaths reported, but 5 homes near that ground zero area, the Derricks Creek area of Kanawha County near Sissonville, 5 homes leveled there. And
you're going to see in just a minute pictures of those homes, what's left of those homes, just a pile of smoldering rubble here in just a minute. Meantime, right now, investigators working on the cause. Safe to say the cause right now just certainly unknown. NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, investigating this because, of course, of I-77, the condition of the highway right now. They're just wrapping up a news conference now at Yeager Airport in Charleston. They plan to be on the site about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So really, April, investigators right now, they're just arrived from Washington. They've not been to the scene yet. They're just kind of briefing people on probably what they're going to be able to do. I understand this is a 10-member team.
Yeah, they're going to be looking at several different areas over the next 5 to 7 days. Again, they're going to be doing a lot of interviews, talking with Columbia Gas workers, pipeline operators, and witnesses. They're going to keep everybody else updated on their progress, but they do not expect that they'll be able to determine a cause during this particular investigative visit. They're going to be collecting evidence and information instead. We want to turn now to 13 News reporter David Iversen.
David has the latest situation going on right now, not far from this gas line explosion scene. David, what have you found out for us tonight?
Good evening, you guys. This investigation in many ways is getting underway right now. It's all happening behind me along Route 21. That's where you'll find investigators from the federal level all the way down. It's not just law enforcement either we're talking about. Members of Columbia Gas also out here figuring out how something like this can happen. Down there where you see those emergency lights, that's where these 5 homes were destroyed by this natural gas explosion. We want to show you a little bit. It's blocked by the tree line, but you can see this big cloud of smoke. That's coming from these houses, still smoldering hours later after this happens. Now, looking toward the future, we have from this point a pretty good view of the interstate. We'll show that to you briefly. Workers started there hours ago before the sun set. They're going to be there throughout the night. The plan now is to have I-77 reopened by sometime early in the morning. But if you saw the video from earlier today, it looked almost like if you've ever burned brownies, you know, that real broken, crusty look to it. They're resurfacing this large swath of I-77. So in the morning, if you have to travel this way, guess what? You're going to be right where we are along Route 21, and officials real concerned with this. It's going to be very busy. Before we go, I want to tell you the plan for overnight. What they're going to do, the reason Columbia Gas is down here, they're going to repressurize this gas line that exploded. All this is happening around 1 o'clock in the morning. That's their plan. And they're going to slowly repressurize so they can get everything back to normal. Tomorrow is a big day, as we talked about. The investigation really is getting underway. Meetings here early in the morning to talk about the next step and what happens. We're going to bring you more information later in the newscast. For now, though, we're live in Sissonville. David Iversen for 13 News.
Thank you, David. We'll see you just a little later in our news tonight.
We want to give you an idea of the area that we've been talking about. Looking down from Google Earth, this is about 15 miles north of Charleston, near Sissonville, right along Interstate 77. You see I-77 there to the right and top of your screen. And the area that we're talking about is just to the left of that. And that's the area where they're also paving the interstate. Again, the north lanes are completed at this point. The southbound repairs are underway, but as David mentioned, at about 1 this morning, they're going to have to stop that process for several hours so that Columbia Gas can begin to repressurize those gas lines in the area. Now, we want to turn to the people in the community where this explosion happened. They say they saw a sight, heard a huge explosion. Thought maybe a meteor had hit the earth. Some even a little further away from the blast heard what happened, rushed to try and help. 13 News reporter Nikki Walters was there throughout the day and joins us from our studios tonight with the very latest.
April and Dawn, I was able to get about 200 yards from the fire and was positioned right next to Kanawha County Metro 911's mobile command center. It was not only a place for first responders to work, but for people affected to get information. And as you will see, a place for people to show their kindness as well.
We were sitting in the house right there, and there's just a big old, I thought a mission called boom!
Larry Turner stopped by the command center after getting lost in the woods, running away from the fire. He was worried about his vehicle parked right in the explosion zone.
I didn't like it. There's just a big blaze, a big orange fog just coming towards us.
A small beagle ran from the scene too. Firefighters noticed his singed fur and burns and took care of him until a humane officer arrived. Fire departments from all across the area came to the scene to help. They went in groups, relieving other teams that had been hard at work.
Look at the siding on these houses. These houses have holes in the roofs. There's divots in the road from the debris from the blast.
As soon as the area was safe, I was escorted to the center of the area where the explosion happened. Smoke was still pouring from the homes, flames still burning in some places. Light poles decorated for the holidays and a charred street sign revealed the power of the fire. Larry Turner finally got in to check on his van. The taillights melted from the blast.
First, I began to feel the ground, the house shake, a loud roar.
Roger McAllister made his way to the command post too. His house was not damaged, but when he saw the flames, he left with nothing but the clothes on his back.
The noise kept getting stronger, the flames kept getting taller, and it looked like it was spreading on toward my own vest.
The Salvation Army, Red Cross, and local citizens stopped by too with coffee and water and snacks as everyone pitched in to make the best of a bad situation. Now, the dog you saw there in the story was picked up by a Kanawha County humane officer. There were some other dogs in a kennel near the explosion that firefighters took the time to go check on while I was there, and they said those dogs appeared to be okay. Live in the studio, Nikki Walters, 13 News.
Of course, we're hearing from more neighbors who described to us the scene and the sounds from the area. One neighbor is telling us this afternoon her power went out. She heard a sound like a low-flying airplane and then a big giant boom sound. She wasn't quite sure what to think at first because it sounded like nothing she had ever heard before. Even in this video, we can hear this giant hissing and certainly see the flames. And neighbors probably are figuring out, how do we react to this? She says for a second it sounded like we were under some form of attack.
Like, we looked outside, like, over the hill, you could see the flames, and then there was, like, a really loud, I don't know how to describe it, like a bomb went off or something, then their power went out. I thought we were being bombed or something. I was really confused. I didn't know what to think.
Now, there is an apartment complex not even a mile from where the explosion occurred. Residents of the Pocatalico Village Apartments tell us their walls literally shook. The assistant manager there is telling us they were concerned with the safety for the tenants.
The initial explosion shook the building with such force that the building physically shook, and we looked at each other, and I stepped out the office door, and you could see the initial fireball up over the mountain beside us. It was an amazing sight, and then the roar, it sounded like standing right beside a jet airplane. It was incredible. I mean, we were going through the apartments telling everybody to evacuate and knocking on doors, and it was pretty crazy there for a few minutes.
I started going through Sissonville, and next thing I know, the whole ground, everything, it was just like the biggest fireball you ever seen. It looked like 3 football fields wide and ginormous, and it was shaking, and then next thing I know, the hair on my legs and arms was just standing up, just like the biggest scare you ever had in your life, and I'm still shaking over this.
Just some of the people in the area. Now, high school students we talked with today were completely unaware of what had happened until just a few hours after they stepped off the school bus. We talked with several of the students from the Ben Franklin Vocational School. They had no idea that the gas line explosion had happened while they were in school, and even while they were on the bus after school headed to the bus garage. Then all of a sudden, they didn't know what they should do about getting home because all the roads had been shut down.
when we got on the bus, they took us to the bus garage, and we waited there for hours, and then we finally watched the news and we found out what happened, and the roads were closed off, and they kept telling us it was just a big bunch of confusion and stuff. And then we get here and I find out I can't even go home because the roads are burnt and melted, and I have to like go around a gravel road to get there. My cell phone's dead, everything.
So Samara told us she was trying to, of course, get home with maybe some other family or friends that are hanging out in the McDonald's in the meantime. Now, in the middle of all this chaos in Sissonville, can imagine, you know, the ground shaking and they see the giant flames there. It was a place today where anyone could go for help. 13 News reporter Jessi Shafer spent the day with people at a shelter made just for that purpose. Jessi, what happened today at the shelter?
Yeah, Dawn, April, Aldersgate United Methodist Church is just a stone's throw away from where the explosion occurred. That's part of what makes it so convenient for people who need a little comfort when they can't go home.
You've heard of the warm and fuzzy feeling. That's what we have every time that we hear that this shelter might be needed.
Aldersgate United Methodist Church in Sissonville isn't just a church. It serves another purpose as well.
When the building was built, it was built with the anticipation that if it was ever needed as a shelter, then we would have the generator, which was also installed at the time the building was built.
In the months that the community building has been open, it's been used 3 times as a shelter. After the derecho, after Superstorm Sandy, and after this explosion.
We heard the gas and saw the fire, and so then we started getting our shelter-in-place minds going, and took some meat out of the freezer and started thinking about what we could do to cook for people.
The volunteers at this shelter saw all kinds of people, children, elderly, people with babies in tow, all of them needing a warm place to stay, maybe some dry clothes or a hot meal. Taylor recalls one woman who stopped by.
Her home was one of those that's directly involved, but she was wet from, I'm not sure if where the water was being sprayed or what. We were able to give her some clothes because we also have a clothing corner here that we operate. And then we called 911. They came and treated her for some time, and then they transported her to the hospital for smoke inhalation.
This woman was at the Dollar General when she heard her home was right next to where the explosion happened. She came into the shelter to get some diapers and formula for her baby. After looking at an aerial view of the scene on another woman's iPad, she realized her home was still intact. This woman had a cornea transplant just today. She was on her way home from the hospital when she felt the ground shake under her car. The women at the shelter supplied her with a warm quilt and a cot.
If it happens again tomorrow, we'll be open again tomorrow. And we're here for the duration, just like we were the other 2 times. We're here for the duration, ever how long this emergency lasts.
These people are in it for the long haul.
If they need anything at all, then they're welcome at the shelter. It'll be fully manned and staffed around the clock until they tell us there's not a need.
And church members tell me they expect about a dozen people to stay overnight tonight, and I have to say I have not met better people. Live at the Charleston News Desk, I'm Jessi Shafer, 13 News.
Amazing how people can help out and have the foresight to think that something like this could have happened.
Absolutely.
And they certainly were prepared.
Still ahead here on 13 News at 11, more of the amazing video and stories from today.
You stay tuned. Much more to come here on 13 News at 11.